Welcome everyone. This is a new show brought to you by Fountaindale Public Library in conjunction with Studio 300. My name is Adriana. I am the Studio Services Assistant Manager and I am joined by Patrick. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm a Studio Services Specialist in Studio 300 at the library. I'm a musician, songwriter, avid board gamer, and moviegoer, as well as a casual video gamer in my downtime.
I'm basically a photographer at this point. I did start in film and video way back when, and then I kind of, over the years, progressed more into graphic design and photography, so that's currently what I do mainly. And then I love to read books. I read a ton of books all the time. I watch way too many movies. I have way too many subscription services. I love watching anything from action films to dramas, foreign films as well. I do play a lot of video games as well, and I do pick up the occasional board game from time to time, which I want to expand into that area a little more since I've found I enjoy the strategic play of it. So, you know, it's good. So
There's so many good ones now.
There are so many good ones. The last one I played was about chilies, growing chilies, but it was really fun. So it was something with peppers.
Scoville?
Scoville, yes.
Scoville is a good
So
one.
that was actually really good. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the library these days?
Yeah, so at the library in Studio 300 during the month of February, the studio will be hosting in conjunction with the online music recording challenge called RPM, which is Record Production Month. We will be hosting several workshops for artists and musicians to come in and record their songs with the goal in mind of either recording 10 songs in the month of February or 35 minutes of music. They could be songs with words, they could just be instrumentals. Basically, we're going to have a bunch of the workshops, 3 of them in total, the first, third, and fifth Saturday of February, as well as a couple check-in days to make sure people are staying on schedule, possibly meet other musicians, vocalists that might want to collaborate on their projects together. And then we're going to have a listening party the first Tuesday in March.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
In conjunction with that, we do host Film Club. Actually, I host it every month. It is the last Tuesday of every month, so it's kind of like a book club. You get to watch a movie ahead of time, and then you come in and we break it down. So it's a lot of fun. If you guys are avid moviegoers, I definitely would suggest coming into one of the film clubs. It is a drop-in, so you don't have to register for it. Alongside with that, the library is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, alongside with the Bolingbrook Park District. So we had a kickoff on the 18th of January. So if you were here, you saw that we have new library cards. There's a lot of programs that are going to be going on that kind of celebrate the library's birthday. So if you have a birthday obviously everybody has a birthday this year, but if it's your 50th birthday, we would love to hear from you. And then after that, we also have coming up something that we want to talk to you today about.
We have the Oscars After Hours Party, February 9th, Sunday.
Yes,
Coming
so
up.
we are going to be watching the actual Oscars, the full length. People should arrive around 5 o'clock. We do close the doors for the library at 6 o'clock, but you can, leave early if you need to. We do trivia, we do a lot of snacks, so, bring your appetite. We have, soda pop, lots of candy, popcorn throughout the whole night, so the whole library smells like popcorn that night. But that is also the topic of today's episode. We are going to kind of talk about the Best Picture nominees. Now, when it comes to talking about movies, there's so much to talk about. And with the Academy Awards, there's even more to talk about. A little controversial that they're so early this year, very early. Even the judges are kind of like behind on watching all the movies that they have to judge.
I'm behind on watching some of the movies.
So am I. And then, not only that, but again, no host this year. So that's, again, another kind of sort of controversial topic is that they won't have a host again this year. Last year, I kind of did miss the host. It is a big integral part of the awards show, and I kind of wish they would bring it back. So we'll see when that will eventually happen. But today, let's go over some of the Best Picture nominees. So the first one on our list is one that neither of us got to actually watch. I did not hear about this movie until I saw the Oscar ballot. So it's Ford v. Ferrari. which is about, you said it was about Ford.
Basically, Ford sponsors a race car driver, I believe, to race a Ford vehicle against Ferraris in some of the racing competitions. Christian Bale plays the lead race car driver. Matt Damon plays, I think, one of the Ford executives. I've heard very good things about the film from some of my good friends. It did have kind of just this, almost dark horse release where it's it came out, people are like, hey, Best Picture, but it wasn't any of the other Best Picture films that people were talking about.
Yeah,
it is
and
still
I mean,
in
it's only
theaters.
got like a couple nominations at this point, right? From what I understand.
It got, I believe, four. So it
yeah.
got not director, just Best Picture, sound editing, sound mixing, and film editing.
Yeah, I would agree that with a movie that focuses on cars and the racing aspect of it, sound and mixing would be a integral part to getting people's blood kind of pumping in the theater, because sitting watching a car go around and around is not that exciting, but you get that sound and you just kind of feel the rev of the engine. So we'll see how this movie does. Christian Bale and Matt Damon do have quite a successful career, both of them, in Hollywood. So I would expect that this movie, there's a reason why it's up there for Best Picture. Hopefully I'll get to see it pretty soon. The next one on our list, you did get to see. I did not get to see. So that is Little Women.
Little Women.
So tell us about it.
Yes, directed by Greta Gerwig, starring Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, Laura Dern, Chris Cooper. Is basically a retelling of Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. Mm-hmm. She does some things in it that kind of move around the timeline, so it's not like straight through. It's kind of two timelines that go in linear fashion, kind of going back and forth. It's the first time I've ever seen that story. I know there have been other versions made and adaptations. I've also never read the book. So going in completely blind, it was a delightful movie. Some wonderful performances. I want to see everything that Saoirse Ronan has been in. I want to see everything that Florence Pugh is going to be in and has been in. She was also in last year's Midsummer. Some people said she should have gotten nominated for that, for her lead performance. She did get nominated for her supporting performance in Little Women. Though she will probably lose to her castmate.
Yeah, sometimes, these ensemble casts, they play off each other so well that it's really hard for the judges to make that ultimate decision of who deserves that Oscar. Anytime you've got characters that are playing off of each other, and this is definitely one of those situations where they have a lot of interplay, there's a lot of emotions that run high throughout this film, if I remember it correctly, because I didn't see this one, but I've seen adaptations of it. So, it is always a good story to retell, and, I hope that I'll get to see what came out of that film, hopefully soon. The next story that we want to talk about is Marriage Story. So this is produced by Netflix, big production company now, coming from a place that used to mail you your DVDs and then went to a streaming service, and now they've got, what did you say, 24 nominations?
24. They lead the nominations.
Yeah, for a production company. It's ridiculous that they've gone this far. And so there's a couple movies that they have up for Best Picture, which includes Marriage Story, which did have a limited release in theaters, since you have to have a release in theaters to be nominated for the Academy Awards. So this stars Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, alongside a very young, talented actor called Ozzy Robertson. I want to say that this movie is definitely a challenge to get through sometimes. There was some really great things with the acting. The narrative with the letters was probably one of my favorite parts. Adam Driver singing on film was just, his song in that scene is so powerful, and you're just like, it's Adam Driver, and he's singing. It's Kylo Ren singing, So that was great to see. But I think what blew me away the most was Ozzy Robertson. This little kid, he's in this story where his parents are basically going through a divorce. And The divorce starts pretty amicably and then kind of breaks down as most things like that go. And if you know, all of us have been through it with either a parent, personal, or friends, seen what divorce can do. But here's this kid, and he's just on screen like, I'm a kid, and I'm gonna be a kid, and he's not throwing these tantrums that you would expect. He's not all angsty. He's just like, I want to play with my toys, I want to play with my friends, and I want to be here. I want to go to school here. So his performance, though understated, I thought was probably one of the stellar performances from a child that I've seen this year. Two children that I saw this year. So yeah, Marriage Story is definitely worth a watch. If you have Netflix, unlike some people that don't have Netflix, and to this day and age, I don't understand it. But you know, it's still up on Netflix, so give it a watch. It's definitely worth it.
Nominated for 6 Academy
Yes,
Awards,
6
including
Academy
3 acting nominations:
Yes.
Best Actor, Lead Actress, Lead Actor,
Yeah.
and a Supporting Actress nom for Laura Dern.
Yeah, I mean, the performances in this are pretty outstanding. You know, there are moments where you're just like, wow. You know, so it's definitely up there. It's a big contender this year. The next movie we want to talk about is one that you did get to see.
I did see this. I saw this almost as soon as it came out. That is Jojo Rabbit, directed by Taika Waititi, New Zealand director who is more famous for directing Thor Ragnarok
Yes.
and the last episode of The Mandalorian, which I have not seen yet.
Oh, me either.
But this is probably one of the more controversial films that came
Yeah.
out that's nominated for Best Picture. As the subject matter, basically, this plot revolves around a young Hitler youth
Yeah.
boy who has an imaginary friend that is Adolf Hitler, played by the director, and discovers that his mom, played by Scarlett Johansson, is hiding a Jewish girl in their attic. And how he grapples with that knowledge and him being more of a Nazi fanatic. There were a lot of people who did not want to go see the film. Some of them have not seen the film
did
because
want
of
to
that.
see it.
But I found it to be a delightful blend of the humor and the
Tragedy. Well, I mean, he has such a knack for doing that. You know,
does.
If you look at What We Do in the Shadows, even, you know, there's this like blend of comedy with this really dark subject matter, and then you have something like Thor Ragnarok, where you know the whole of Asgard is falling apart. You know, and everybody's just like, you know, what are we gonna do? We don't know where our home is anymore, but you're still able to laugh throughout the whole movie, you know, and I think that he blends comedy and tragedy very well. You know, it's not to the point where you are kind of put off by the tragedy, where like in comparison to Marriage Story, where there was a couple scenes where I was just like, this is really uncomfortable. You know, it's kind of hard to watch because it's really dark subject matter. He's kind of like, yeah, it's really dark, but let's end it with a laugh, you know?
and there were definitely moments in JoJo where you're like, ooh, that's
Yeah.
really either a risky joke or that's just a really terrible thing. And then a moment later you're like, but this is so ridiculous because they're all fools.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's kind of a gift to be able to, you know, make the audience laugh even when the subject matter is not something, you know, that you're happy about. It's controversial, it's dark, it's, you know, sad, and he's able to still say, hey, it's all part of life, you know, and that's pretty much what we have in life. It's fun, can be a roller coaster, and he definitely takes us through a roller coaster in most of his films. So I agree, he is definitely a great filmmaker, and I wish I would have gotten to see Jojo Rabbit. The production design looked amazing on that, which I think lends to that side of the humor, you know, because if it would have been very, if the production design would have been very historically correct, it wouldn't have had the same punch with the humor. So even though I haven't seen it, I have seen some previews, I have seen some clips, so I kind of know where he goes in these directions. So, you know, hopefully I'll get to see it very soon. The next film we want to talk about is one, did you get to see this one?
I have not seen it yet. No, of course not. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, another Netflix film. So the next one from Netflix is called The Irishman. This stars a lot of people. Let's just put it that way. So De Niro's in it, Al Pacino's in it, Joe Pesci's in it, everyone's in it, you know? It's a mobster movie. It's based off a book called I Hear You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt. And it's a story of a hitman kind of, and how he gets started, and then his kind of career, and you know, Hoffa's in it, so there's a big grander story behind the scenes as well. Very lengthy film. That's probably the 3:41.
Whoa!
3 hours and 41 minutes. I had spent the day watching movies. I was trying to catch up, and I watched Marriage Story. I watched, what was the other one that I watched that day? Joker, and then I watched The Irishman, and I was supposed to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood right after, but I could not. I was just like, I'm done for today, you know? It's just very, very long, and I'm not sure that it actually needed to be this long. Now, there's some stellar performances in this. My favorite part of this whole movie is Pesci. He just gives a performance that I've never seen before. You know, he's usually this little ball of energy. He's always swearing. You know, he's just, in almost every role that he's played, he's this like little ball of just tumbling energy, and he's just all over the place. And in this role, he was so understated. He was just like very calm demeanor. He's like, half the time he's asleep in the car, you know? It's just so different to see Pesci in a role like that, and I absolutely love seeing it. It's like, oh, this is a range an actor has, you know? You put it up against his performance in Goodfellas, and you're gonna see some very big differences. This movie's up for a ton of awards. 10, including one for the de-aging process. It was done well. I mean, I know you've seen some clips of them, and they make them look younger, not teen younger, but they do make them look, you know, kind
30,
of 30, 40, around
younger,
there.
And one of the toughest things for visual effects artists to do is to basically take an actor who's been filmed without any kind of, you know, tracking devices. They were just filmed as they were normally act, and then to manipulate that face to look younger but still look real. And from what I've seen and what I've heard, they did a remarkable job on it.
They did. It's a little more believable because, you know, the body goes along with it, you know. The body's movement, you know, as you get older, you get slower, you know, and you can see them when they're older. There is a really great scene between De Niro and Pesci when they're in jail, and they're all old, and they're falling apart, and Pesci's like dipping bread in vinegar because he can barely eat, and he's just like sucking on it. So it's body language. It all goes in there. So, you know, they were able to marry that de-aging process with the characters' movements, and it was really well done. So I would say they definitely have a good chance for the visual effects. Otherwise, it's a good story. I want to say it was told well, but it didn't really push the envelope. That's one thing that I kind of like, well, it's a mobster movie, you know? It felt like it was just kind of down the line. We checked off what a mobster movie is. The production design was done well. I like the fact that they didn't, you know, define the mobster. They didn't go all classy, or not classy, but like, you know, flashy and like, oh, you know, I'm gonna wear 10 gold chains and I'm the mobster and the wife beater and things like that. They actually more or less portrayed the era, which was really well done. You know, the cars, everything that you see is to date, so it's really well done.
With Scorsese, I found probably better than any other director, really finds the good balance between the story he's telling and the time at which it takes place.
Yes.
Gangs of New York being another one where you have just this intimate story of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and then by the end of the film, it's like all this stuff is happening in America.
Yeah.
And it's all boiling down to New York.
And you do get that as well here. You do have the whole underlying story with Jimmy Hoffa, which was told well. You know, the Hoffa story has been one of the great American mysteries that, you know, has been retold and retold and retold. So it's definitely a film that's worth a watch. So if you have Netflix, go ahead and watch it, but make sure you have time.
If you don't have Netflix, find a friend who does.
Exactly. So find a friend who does. Or you can come to the library and check out a Roku that has Netflix on it. So
They do have Netflix.
yes, they do have Netflix on it. The next story we want to talk about is a kind of fan favorite, Tarantino. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you know, he brings us a new story. He writes and directs this movie, starring DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, with minor roles by Kurt Russell and Al Pacino. And so this is a story that, you know, follows alongside an actor who's kind of trying to restart his career a little bit. He's been in a lot of TV shows. He was the action guy, and, you know, he's doing a lot of stuff, and now it's a brand new Hollywood. So it's, you know, tell us what your perceptions were.
So yeah, it takes place kind of during the golden age of Hollywood, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is basically at the tail end of his career.
Yeah.
Had his couple of breaks, but never that really big one. You know, never that Steve McQueen Great Escape break or anything like that. And he realizes that he's pretty much done for as an actor. He's a has-been, and in addition to him, it follows Brad Pitt, who's his stunt double, as he tries to kind of find other work / just go about his day.
Yeah.
DiCaprio finally gets like one more break where he gets to be on this cowboy show as a villain, not the hero, and is challenged.
It's a perfect fit, though.
It is a perfect fit.
It really was the perfect fit for his character, even though he was kind of not happy about it, and he struggled very much with the character. We have that great performance scene where he's like breaking down in his trailer, and he's just like swearing and, you know, tossing a full-on tantrum. But he also is challenged quite a bit by a younger character in this movie that we both agree was just a scene stealer sometimes.
Yes, probably the scene steal of the year.
Yeah, I mean, she was amazing in this. She's only 11 years old, and, you know, she's sitting in this chair just kind of being herself, and then all of a sudden she starts striking up this conversation with DiCaprio, and then, you know, he's just like looking at her like, she's kind of amazing, and I should be amazing, because she's just like, I want to be better every time. I want to strive for a better performance. And I feel like that little girl kind of got him to be like, I want to be a better performer. I want to be a better actor. And all of the scenes where they're together is just probably my favorite storyline in this whole movie.
Yeah. Julia Butters is the name of the
Julia
actress. Definitely scene stealer of the year.
Yeah.
When you're on screen with just Leonardo DiCaprio and everybody's talking about you, you know you've done a really, really fantastic job.
I expect to see great things from this little girl. She's already got 11 acting credits under her belt, so she is definitely going somewhere with her acting. And I would say the next film she comes out in, I'm definitely going to be looking at her and seeing what she can do there, you know? This is the first time I actually had seen her. I haven't seen any of the other things that she's been in, but like you said, being on screen with DiCaprio and being able to kind of pull a little bit from him is just, it's astounding at that age. And then, you know, they have that one scene where they're in, you know, he shoves her off the chair, and, you know, that's probably my favorite scene for DiCaprio. So, you know, they're acting this performance, and he kind of shoves her off the chair, and then he has this moment with the director, and they're talking about, you know, how he wanted it to be kind of Shakespearean and kind of villainous and very dark, and DiCaprio starts getting all choked up because he realizes that he got the performance he wanted. So it's really great to see that. And, you know, you do get to see a lot of the heyday of 1960s. You know, Hollywood 1960s, we do have a background story for the Manson family, right?
With the Manson family,
Yeah.
Sharon Tate is played by Margot Robbie. So that is all happening in the background, and it's basically this you know, last kind of swan song of the golden age of Hollywood on film, before, you know, the tragedy of the Manson murders unfolds, and, you know, Hollywood would forever be changed by that incident.
Sure.
But at the same time, you know, it's always kind of just that buddy film, you know, between DiCaprio's character and Pitt's character,
Yeah.
and you know what they're doing. Again, another really good blend of the story being told and the time at which it takes place.
Yes.
It's nominated for 10 awards, including Best Director, Best Picture, Best Actor for DiCaprio,
Yes.
Supporting Actor for Pitt, which was probably my biggest reaction during the film, was seeing Pitt in that performance and being like, this is one of his best.
Yeah.
He should get a nomination.
And he did.
He did, and I'm hoping he wins. I think
We'll see.
he has
He's
a
up
good
against,
shot.
you know, he's up against a few really good characters as well.
Yes.
So, you know, it's always really hard to tell with the performances which way the judges are going to go. But I agree with you. This is probably one of Pitt's better performances. You know, I've seen him in so many things, and there are times where he struggles, and you can clearly kind of see that. But at the same time, he's now kind of a veteran in Hollywood, you know. And so he is a master at his craft, and it's clearly showing now in the movies that he's producing. So the next film we want to talk about, moving on, is going to be Joker. So this we have pretty different views
Probably
on.
the most divergent of the
Yeah.
movies we've seen. This one, I think, we're probably more disagreeing on than
Yeah, I
any
mean,
other.
don't get me wrong. I think this movie is great. The performance given by Joaquin Phoenix is astounding. You can really tell that he completely gave into this character. You know, you can feel the mental illness, you can feel the darkness, but I don't see him as the Joker. And I don't see this as a portrayal of the Joker. I feel like this movie had enough, you know, oomph and legs to stand on its own without having to buy the Joker character into it. Now, it is supposed to be a comic film. It is supposed to be part of the DC storyline, and where they're going to go with this, no one knows, because Joker 2 is slated now. So we know there's more coming. But you have to look at it both ways. You see the performance, and yes, that's great, but I look at where it lies in the scope of the comic book world, and I'm like, it blurred a lot of lines.
Yes, and I will give it that the, you know, there's this feeling that, did it have to be about the Joker? Could it have just been anybody's story who, you know, struggles with the mental illness, and you know, the polarization and stigmatization of living with the mental illness in this society? It probably didn't necessarily have to be about the Joker, and I think that's where you take the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Is that they did take this comic book character. Comic books tend to be, you know, popcorn entertainment with maybe some like strong themes depending
Yeah.
on the comic you're reading. But you know, by and large, he's a villain. He's you know depending on which comic you're reading, he's either, you know, or movie you're seeing, he's an anarchist, he's just a violent villain who cannot
Or
be
he's-
reasoned with.
yeah.
This is a very different take.
Yeah.
This is a take on that character that's never been told, which I'm appreciative of. I'd rather they try something new than just, you know, try to give us another
And
Joker.
I don't disagree. I
But
think they, you know, DC has retold too many stories. That's one of the issues I have. You know, Batman has been rebooted how many times now? And we've seen several.
Up to be 5 or
Yeah,
6?
5 or
Just
6.
for the films
Just
alone?
for the Batman series alone. And we've seen adaptations of Joker throughout every reboot, you know, from the classic, you know, zany, you know, very off the chain walls, and, you know, he's just a villain. And then we've seen the darker side when we got to see Heath Ledger's performance, and that
We thought that was the darkest
Yeah,
side
yeah,
that we
we
were ever
did.
going to see.
Yeah, and then we get to this. This is visceral. This is heart-wrenching at times. There are times where you really, truly feel sorry for him. And that's where I have the issue, where you start to feel sorry for the villain, where you start to wonder if he's actually right. Because I feel that in a hero story, the villain has to be the polar opposite. You know, there has to be this sharp line between the black and white. Because if not, when you blur those lines, it tends to be like, well, then, you know, is the villain right? And then who becomes the hero? Is the villain the anti-hero, or do we have a clear hero? And so that's probably where I kind of had so many issues with the movie. And I was really biased going in, so it's kind of, I feel bad about that. I really did not want to watch this movie, but when it came out for Best Picture, I was like, okay, I guess I have to watch it. And there are some great things. There are reasons why it's a Best Picture. Production,
as well as the cinematography,
Yes.
the blend of those, the way those two, the cinematographer and production designer work together for the color schemes in this film were very, very strong and always kind of at the front of your mind, in the back of your mind. Like you're not thinking about them, but at the same time you're
They're
appreciative of them the whole
Yeah.
time. For me, a powerhouse performance by Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Do I think it deserved all the nominations it got? Probably not. I also take some issues with the ending. You know, I definitely thought this film was stronger in its first half than
Yeah.
its second half. I felt like they leaned a little too hard on the violence.
Yeah, and
When it arrives, I think because of that, as well as because it's about the Joker,
Yeah.
some of what the film's about is lost on a good number of the people who see it.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning part of this movie and throughout, you know, it is kind of telling the story of this man living with a mental illness who is struggling to find his role and place in society when society keeps knocking him down.
Right.
For his struggles. And by the end, you just feel like you're watching this film about the Joker. If you buy in
well,
to
that's the
it,
thing. That's one of
that
the-
this could be the Joker.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of also wish. I think if there would be a clear moment in this movie where I felt he gave into that madness, you know. It's always very ambiguous. It's almost like he's giving into it, but at the same time, he's still running from it. You know, even at the end, the last few moments of this movie, where he has his last laugh, and he's like, "You wouldn't understand," and then he's walking out, and you can clearly see the bloody footsteps. But then he's just running back and forth. It just feels like he's still running away from this madness. Whereas I feel like the Joker, from the get-go, had given into that madness and was like, I am who I am. I am the Joker. This is who I am. So I wish that there would have been a clearer moment in this movie where I felt this is the Joker.
Maybe
and then
there's-
probably I would have liked it a little bit more.
Maybe they're saving that for part 2.
Yeah, who knows? But I mean, you know, you cannot deny the performance given by Joaquin Phoenix in this film. You just cannot deny that. And I have to give a little bit of a nod to the director that he got this performance, especially with his background. Because Todd Phillips comes from the Hangover series, he's done the Road Trips, and so he's done this like comedy movies. He's done all these like very on the line raunchy comedy movies. And then this is his first like serious film where the subject matter is completely dark and serious, and the performance that he got out of Joaquin Phoenix is just astounding. So I do have to give him credit where credit is due. So I will say that he definitely directed this very well. And you know, again, Joaquin Phoenix, big nod to him. This was just, he gave into that character. You know, he gave into that completely. But the next one on our list is one that both of us absolutely love. Both of us agree on this one about everything, which is 1917.
Yes, probably the front runner in the
Yes.
Best Picture race now. Is technically amazing. Is very well told. Kind of a streamlined story. It takes place during World War I, following two soldiers trying to deliver a message to the front line to prevent an attack from occurring that's going to result in basically the annihilation of an entire company or brigade
unit, yeah.
of soldiers. The acting was very well done. You have your two lead performances, George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman,
Yes.
who did very much carried the film. I mean, they're on screen the entire time.
Yes,
They-
there's a couple moments where they kind of split up, but it's
Yes.
still like the whole time they are on screen. You are with them every step of the way. And I think that is what both of us were wowed by, is the fact that you literally walk every step with these characters. And that is big part and due to the cinematography, which, you know, it just gets you. You know, you are constantly with them. You are in the tightest spaces with them, and then you open up to these grand panoramic scenes. And you know, the level of expertise that it took to get these characters on screen the whole time, always in relatively great lighting. The lighting in this is also so astounding and amazing. You know, everything had to be timed perfectly. They had to work with what they had, and you know, they built these huge trenches. I mean, the level and scope of this production is just, you can see it, you can feel it. And it was one of the films that really resonated with me this year, because I was like, oh my God, this is what movie production is, and this is what I wish I would have been a part of, and this is why I do graphic design, why I do photography, why I love being behind a camera. But you know, you give into the story.
Yes, that's certainly why I love going to see movies, especially in the theaters. So this is a one-shot.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned that. It's done as it's done to look like it was one shot.
Single shot, yeah.
Through the entire film, which takes a huge amount of resources and commitment from the director, the cinematographer, the production
actors.
designer, the actors. The actors were rehearsing 6 months on set before the set was built, because everything has to be timed out so that you have a set that fits everything that happens and all the dialogue. And then, you know, you can't build a set that's bigger than what you need because it costs more money.
I mean, you had to walk every step of the way with them. So, you know, they had to really map out every direction. They had to block every scene correctly. And then should an actor miss their mark, that shot is ruined. And that shot could have been going for 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like they missed the mark, and you know, they had to either adapt to it very well, or you have to start over.
Or you do the shot, or if a lighter doesn't go off to light a cigarette, which happened on set, you have to go back 6 minutes, do it all again. Everybody has to get back in place. For me, the three probably most impressive parts with the one shot were the opening kind of descent into the trench, where you just start getting more and more claustrophobic because you're not, there's never a cut, there's never a moment to breathe, and all they're doing is walking into a trench, and you're like, this is making me anxious.
Yes.
The ending trench scene as well. You know,
things are exploding.
Your explosions are happening.
All these explosions.
And you know, anybody who's familiar with like the amount of technical prowess that goes into an action scene with, you know, squibs and explosions, to do that as a single take is like,
it's ridiculous.
So
I mean,
daunting.
Like, one of the Bond movies, if I recall correctly, there was this one of the Bond movies where he does this like the jump with the motorcycle over like a helicopter. There was like 14 cameras going on at the same time, and so they caught it from every single angle, because why? It's expensive. You know, any action scene is expensive. And so the way that they did this, and in one single take, it just blew my mind. I was just like, I cannot believe this is happening. Like the whole time I was just like, you know, when I went in to watch this movie, I actually had not seen a single trailer. So I had no idea this was a single take until like they started going into the trenches, and I'm like, this has been going on a very long time. There's no break, there's no two shot, there's no this, there's no that. And then I'm like, oh my God, you know, this is a single shot.
They're
they're doing it seamlessly. And then, you know, there's the other scene that is probably one of both of our favorites, is the nighttime scenes. The lighting in this is like a living organism. You know, you have the flares going overhead, and anytime that the flares are going overhead, the shadows are constantly moving. You get some beautiful silhouettes, but you also, I mean, this takes some technical expertise to get this right. I mean, if you are even off, you know, a tiny bit on your focus, your actor is completely blurry. So the fact that they got this and how it looked and how beautiful those colors appear on film, just blows my mind, just blows my mind. So this is definitely one of the bigger contenders of the year. I would agree with every single one of their nominations. This movie deserves just about everything. You know, it's so well done. There's nothing really that you can find an error with. You know, there's no boom pole in the shot. There's no really crackly audio. Everything was done so well. So I really have to give it to every single person that worked on this production, because without one person, everything could have fallen apart. So they had to work as a single unit, and that just kind of even ties on top of the fact that you're watching a war film. You know, everything is a unit, and the production had to be a unit. The actors had to be a unit. Everything had to work seamlessly. So, yeah.
But yeah, 1917, see it in theaters while it's still there. Directed by Sam Mendes, and shot by Roger Deakins.
Who,
definitely
deserves
a powerhouse of a film.
Yeah, I really, really am going to be angry if he does not get the cinematography Oscar, because I don't think that any movie this year can contend with his cinematography.
Joker was, for me, my pick until I saw 1917,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh no, it's this one. It's got to be this one.
For me, it wasn't Joker.
Yeah.
It was the next movie that we're going to talk about, which is another favorite of both of ours, which is Parasite. So Parasite, this is a film that is coming out of South Korea, and it is a fabulous film. It has a ton of nominations as well, and it really does deserve the nominations that it gets. This is directed by Bong Joon-ho, who has directed other films like Okja in 2017. He wrote this along with Han Jin-won, who is his writing debut, which is astounding to me. This is his writing debut, so this is the first official credit he's getting for writing, and it's up for an Oscar. They did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes for almost everything, and they definitely cleaned house in South Korea. So the awards show in South Korea, they just won everything, and it's well deserved. So we have a lot of actors in this. We have Song Kang-ho, who this is his fourth movie with the director. Lee Sung-kyun, Cho Young-jong, Cho Woo-sik, and Park So-dam. So Cho Woo-sik has been in quite a few productions. I've actually seen him in several movies. I've seen him in several television shows, and he always is this quirky little character. So it was really great to see him in this kind of film. This is a little bit more serious of a role for him, and you know, it's subject matter that is a bit controversial. You know, you have this division of classes, you have this desperation of their poverty. You really get to feel their poverty, and they're desperate to kind of get out of that poverty, but they do it in a not so legal way. So they kind of hoodwink this family into allowing them to work for them. And first it starts out with him becoming a tutor for one of the kids. And he's a very smart guy, so obviously tutoring the kid was something that he could do. But then all of a sudden he brings a sister in. And then they find a way to get his dad in. And then they find a final way to get the mom in. So, you know, you see them doing all these really set up, almost heisty moves to get everybody in. And then you have this family who's just kind of really they're rich, they really don't know anything about life almost. They're very naive in many respects, and they look down on almost everyone. So there's this really, really big division of class, and you really feel that. There's a lot of things that are done so well in this movie. I know you absolutely love the cinematography and the editing in this.
As well as the production design.
Yeah.
I've gone and watched several essays, video essays on this film, which is becoming just this perfect kind of, for film students, it's like the perfect film to teach them the art of filmmaking and the different things that go into filmmaking that, other than the technical sides of it, it's, how to, one of the motifs that goes throughout the entire film is don't cross the line, don't cross the line. They show shot after shot of the characters being divided by literal vertical lines or horizontal lines, separating the rich characters from the poor characters. Yes. And then when when the young man becomes the tutor, he crosses that line,
Yeah.
and stuff like that you're not even thinking of when you're watching this film. But Bong Joon-ho, his production designer, obviously knew exactly what they were doing. Everything is planned. The rhythm of this film, the movement of the characters,
The
you could
sound
tell
design.
the sound design, everything was picked exactly how they wanted it, and they took their time.
They didn't take their time.
They didn't take their time.
They filmed this in 77 days. Now, if you're not familiar with South Korean movie production or TV production, you wouldn't know, but they pump out things so fast. It is always astounding to me what they do, how fast they turn productions around. They work themselves to the bone to always get the perfect performance, and then all of a sudden it's on screen. And you're just like, but you just started filming like 2 months ago. This was finished in less than, 3 months. It's astounding to me. And to get this level of production, to get these characters, and the actors in South Korea, I'm sorry, but they are so great at the drama. I think almost every single actor in Korea is taught to cry on cue because it's so astounding to me that all of a sudden, you're in the middle of a comedy and then all of a sudden they're just like bawling and you're bawling with them. And, you don't get that aspect here. It's a lot more understated and the performances are very subdued versus the other kind of stuff that you see coming out of South Korea. But this is a story that just kind of blows you away. And it's not, something out of the ordinary. There is still division of class in several countries. There is still this fine line where you feel like you can't cross it, and how you overcome those barriers. Some people go through it with school, and these guys were like, no, we're just gonna, kind of tweak this family, and we're gonna try to better ourselves. And, there's a twist in the movie that it's been such a long time since a movie got me like that. I did not expect the twist. I was just completely bought into all the story, and then all of a sudden, bam, things change. And it's that moment where those things change, the pacing picks up, and you can feel the climax coming, and it's just, there was a couple moments where I wanted to walk out because I was so tense. The tension that they build in this movie is just,
they definitely
you feel it.
You definitely drop your guard in the first half
Yeah.
of this film because it is comical what they're doing and the way they do it and the way the story is told. But like you said, when that twist comes, it's tonal shift,
Yeah.
and then
It shifts
another
gears.
shift again,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh my gosh, this film. And you realize that these things which you thought were the background or, kind of just like these side ideas or side themes were actually, the forefront of what's been going on the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just put right in front of you. The actors, I was completely awed by the actors in this
Yeah.
film. Song Kang-ho has no professional training,
Yeah.
and very much holds his own. The actors
Choi
overall-
Woo-shik and Park Bo-dam also give really great performances. They're two very young actors. They're still young, and they've got really great careers. I mean, if you look at their filmography, you will be astounded by how much they do. Especially Choi Woo-shik. Oh my God, he's just in everything. Seems like he's kind of shifted gears a little bit since 2017. He has done nothing but movies. Before that, he was doing both movies and television production. So we'll see. I mean, this is definitely a movie that's going to launch their careers into a different level. A lot of the actors in South Korea, they're usually in just about everything, but with this level of production and being a global scale, I think that this is going to launch them into some new heights. So, I'm glad to see that.
Certainly with the 6 Oscar nominations, they also won the Screen Actors Guild for Best Performance by an Ensemble. in a feature film.
Which was very, very
was only the
impressive.
second time a foreign film has been nominated for that. They are the first to ever win.
Yeah.
I think they have a really good shot at Best Picture, which they absolutely deserve. It is definitely my pick of the year for my favorite film. I am going to see it again as soon as I can.
You can actually buy it on Amazon now.
It's already available on. Oh my
You know,
gosh.
I'm telling you, they pump out production so fast. So it's already available on Amazon. I got to pick it up. But you know, how the nominations go this year, we don't know. We'll see how things go. There are definitely, I would say, 1917 and Parasite are the biggest contenders in my eyes for the Best Picture. I am torn. I really want to say Parasite. But then 1917 keeps pulling me. But at the same time, I cannot stop thinking about Parasite. I just keep going back to these little moments. I keep thinking about the cinematography. I keep thinking about the shadow play and all these things. So, you know, I'm going to leave it at we'll see at the Oscars. I will tell you what my pick for Best Picture is. So that is it from us today. Next time on our show, we are going to be talking about another South Korean phenomenon that has been happening. So BTS is going to be releasing their next album late in February, and we are going to be listening. You have no idea what K-pop is about. So this is going to be a fun and interesting way to kind of introduce you to a little bit of K-pop. I actually am big in K-pop, and I am an official army-carrying member of the fandom for BTS, so I will have a lot to say. So join us then to kind of get a glimpse at their new album. Thank you.